All right, boys. Semphis here. We're gonna make a video on Liquid and kind of how I've rate their players. So I've seen some people kind of arguing on, who's the best player on Liquid, and this is just my opinion from watching a lot of the tournaments. As some of you might know, I had an eye disease and eye surgery that was very hard to recover from. So I haven't really been able to play a lot. So I've been watching a ton of Counter-Strike though, because I can watch it on my TV and I seem fine. But anyways, I've watched pretty much every tournament. So basically, if you want to rank the players, the way that I would do it is I'd probably put it Liege first, then it would be Twistzz or NAF, depending on the day, followed by Nitro and Stewie. Those two are kind of interchangeable as well. Now, obviously, any player on Liquid can be the best in the server. That's kind of one of the reasons they're like so deadly. They don't really have a weak link. They don't have someone that's constantly bottom fragging. They can all come up big in clutches and yada yada. So, while I'm not saying anyone is like bad on their team, don't construe it that way. It's more like who's the biggest carry, who's doing the most work. So, statistically, I think it's pretty obvious that it's a Liege. I think one of the reasons that that he's had this like kind of uprising performance is because of Stewie. I think once Taco left, Stewie kind of came in and it kind of opened up and enabled the Liege to kind of have more freedom. He's not always the point man into sites anymore. He's the CTs spots are pretty much the same, but on T side, I think he's having a lot more impact, just not always having to be the first or the second one in the site. A lot of times you'll see Stewie going first with Nitro. Nitro doesn't primarily opt 24/7, so maps like Inferno and Overpass, sometimes you'll see like Nitro entering with Stu and then like a Liege is kind of like third, fourth in, whereas primary before you'd see him more like entering earlier, so kind of like, with his skill set and everything, it kind of just enables him to get way more kills. Because it doesn't really matter how good you are. If you're the first person entering into sites versus really good teams, it's almost like the first guy is gonna die. So if you're ever the first one into a site versus a good team and you get a kill, that's not always, but like that is so good. Like if you go in first on Inferno and you just one shot the guy Coffin, and then your team swarms in, you probably won this round. Like unless the team has like people over rotating early, like the other guy is screwed. He's either smoked out or he's about to get 4v1'd. So, if you have someone to get that entry, it's super huge, but most of the time, if you're the first one in, you're like, maybe do some damage, die, give the calm out, your teammates come in, trade, the other guy gets a kill, they trade, and it's like a 3v3. That's usually how it happens versus good teams, and then the 3v3 is kind of what sets like really good teams apart from like the good teams. So I think the fact that he doesn't have to just sacrifice his life entering sites is one of the reasons that he's been doing so well. On top of that, I think with Taco, there was like a little bit more like, there was less info gathering that Stewie does, so Stewie will push further into enemy lines and kind of like give them like this kind of like intel of where people are, and he might die doing it. So like on Nuke, if you go outside, let's say, and he's clearing everything out, and then a dude might peek him from under ladder or something and just op him, but Nitro's right behind him, he gets the trade, that's good. That's perfect. Now this is open, a Liege just walks up and he gets into heaven, bam, now he's lurking, they do some intersplit, whatever. Before it would probably be a Liege going up and scaling like that, and he would be the one to die. So I think that's a big factor. I think Stewie is like one of the big reasons why a Liege has been performing so well, aside from the fact that a Liege is also very skilled. Second best on the team, I think it's just kind of like a tie between NAF and Twistzz. I think like, if you look statistically when NAF first joined with the old lineup, I think NAF was the best player on their team. I don't think he got any worse. I think he kind of relinquished some of his roles. So he used to be like, a little bit more like in the pack, kind of like more aggressive. like it's hard for me to explain like what his role really changed to, because like he pretty much plays most of the same spots. I just feel like the way that they do things is different now, so he's taking kind of like more of a back seat. He's not being used kind of in the same way, even though he's kind of doing the same roles, if that makes sense. Like if you see on overpass, they might be entering like into B with like huge execute, and he's kind of like baiting them in through monster to kind of like get that trade frag later, as where before he would have been like more in the pack, I feel like. CD side, pretty much same roles, but yeah, like I really don't have like a set thing. I just know that like by watching them, he's not going for as many kills, and he's kind of playing more for the team, throwing more flashes, more nades, kind of doing more teamwork oriented stuff. Whereas before, I felt like more things were kind of revolved around him. Like he would be the guy going up banana on Inferno on T side with a rifle. Now he's kind of like throwing the nades and flashes for Stewie and Elige. He even opts and just holds banana for like the whole round. So, like if you do this, you're not going to get a lot of kills. Most people don't push, but if they do, they die. So I feel like NAF's kills are always like super impactful. Like he might only be 8 and 7, but every kill that he got was like really impactful kill, because he doesn't really hunt ecos, and he doesn't really like do anything stupid. He kind of just does his job. Now Twistzz is a little bit different, because Twistzz is like the most passive player on the team. Twistzz is like Twistzz is the player that when I played with him, he wanted to play drop on cobble. Nobody wants to play drop on cobble, all right? So he likes playing the spots that nobody likes playing. He likes playing the spots where he can just survive and live. He loves living. He hates dying. If you went and played a pug with Elige and Twistzz, I guarantee you Elige goes for way more battles and dies way more than Twistzz does. It's just like natural to him to want to survive, which is fine. So when you have a player like that, you have him playing spots like B on, or it's not B, sorry, like long A on Dust 2, Pit on Inferno, inner on Nuke, but like the inner guy that never rotates, he just sits there behind Silo or on the rafters. He plays a lot of very stationary spots where you just don't move. You just sit there, you hold your fucking spot, and I think while they're winning, he will never be their best player consistently. I feel like as long as they're like kind of in this groove, he'll top frag, obviously. He'll have nuts rounds. I'm not saying that. I more mean like as long as they're winning like they are right now, Elige and NAF, Stewie, and Nitro, they're like going around and killing people. So there's not a lot left. Like you have to think on Dust 2, like if you play long A, right, and your team wins 12-3, they probably had a bunch of rounds where they mid B, they went B, they went off cat. If your teammates are holding these spots, you're probably gonna end the half like 9-4 or something. Like people don't go long that much. Inferno's the same thing. They're running up lane, wrapping, like, yeah, they're going B, like, yeah. Unless you have to go and retake and your teammates are dying, you get your 1 or 2 kills and you kind of just end the half with like a good score. Like you did your job. But that's kind of what I mean is like, when your teammates are winning, there's just like, those spots don't utilize you like 20 and 8. Like Elige's spot where you're like the A rotator on Dust 2, like you gotta fight long, you gotta fight the cat guys, you gotta fight the mid guys. Like you have like 3 different locations to get kills versus Twistzz 1. So if everything is being held, you know, Elige in theory should be getting more kills. That's just the kind of the way I think about it. It's kind of like the same way, like if NAF plays mid B rotator, you know, he gets B kills, he's got mid kills, and then he's the first to rotate to A. So, you know, it's just the role, and I think the fact that Twistzz is so good and he likes playing those dots is really beneficial for Liquid. So I think that's like he's a really good player to have when your team is already so good. If Twistzz was the best player on the team and other players were all like a lot worse than him, I feel like it would be better off to put him in a better position. But since everyone is so good, then him being in that spot is just like, it's just like, fuck, like you can't even go and exploit the long guy. Like usually the long guy is someone like carrying him. Like it's usually like the worst player on the team, you know? Like, so if you're ever getting owned, you're like, all right, well, let's do a default and we'll fall back to long and we'll try to just, you know, kill the pit guy and then we'll throw the long swing strike across it. Like, but then you're going out versus Twistzz and he's not a fucking bot, so he's gonna get 2 instead of someone's normal 1. That's just kind of like how I view that kind of rule. Now, if the team ever falls off and people start sucking, then I feel like Twistzz would probably become the best player on the team. He's in a role, he's very consistent, he plays a lot, he has very good aim. I think if, you know, they start losing and they stop like falling off this first place, I think he might turn out to be the best player on the team. But as of right now, Elige NAF, I'd put like a little bit higher than him, but obviously he's so close to NAF, I still think they're kind of tied. Now, I'd kind of say it's the same thing as like if you took someone like Nico, right? Like Nico's not really super aggressive. Say you took Nico and you put him on a team like Simple, Sunny, Yuri, and like, I don't even know, like KNG or something, a bunch of aggressive players, and they're fucking owning everyone and they're winning and everything. Like Nico's probably not going to be the statistical best team. Like Simple and Yuri are probably gonna get way more kills than him just because they're so aggressive. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like one of those things where I think you're kind of. That's why stats are misleading. You know, like you can't always go off by stats because there's other things that happen. Now you look at Nitro and Stewie, and both these players can go off. We've all seen Nitro be like 25-5. We've seen Stewie go like, 20-5. Like both these players are really good. They can top frag. I would say that Stewie is a lot more valuable than some people think. Like people get mad because he'll be like 8-8 and he'll like spray someone's dead bodies thing, and he'll talk shit after like winning a 1v1. They're like, oh, he's 8-8 and he's getting carried. It's like, well, he does play a lot of shit spots. All right, he pretty much does all the bitch shit on T side, although that is kind of what he likes doing. He goes for info, he runs up, he does all that kind of shit, and I've kind of explained it before, so I'm not going to re-explain it, but he's the info getter on T side. He entries a lot, first or second in. Naturally, you're going to die a lot doing that. CD side, I think people don't understand how bad it sucks to play some of the spots. He plays nuke on ramp. This is the worst spot. It's the most boring spot. You see anyone, you fall, and you go hide and lower. That's what you should do. Unless your teammates are there and you're doing some sort of setup, you should never fight anyone at ramp. You should just drop and die. Maybe if you have an op, then you op it, whatever. But like 99% of the time, you just get info. If you can get a little quick pop shot kill and then drop, great. If not, you pretty much, as soon as you get spotted and you see them commit, you drop. Your teammates have to watch on their ladder. Someone got to come and help you lower, and you do some sort of like crossfire. That's all you do. And a lot of people that have played ramp understand it. It's literally the most boring spot. If upper gets taken, it's like, unless it's a 2v2, like you're retaking it at 2v4, so you're never going to win that. Like it's such a bad, like it's a very important spot to play correctly, but it's very like low frag and just not that fun. Then he plays, B on Inferno, and some people are like, oh, B on Inferno, I love that spot. I get so many kills on B on Inferno. Yeah, maybe you do versus the noobs that you play. But like, you play versus like Na'Vi, versus FaZe, you might actually get a lot of kills because their T-sides kind of suck. But Astralis, whatever, you play versus the good teams, it is very hard to play Beyond Inferno. If your team doesn't like get some early info that like they're going B, which they should if you're a good team, but regardless, if you don't have that third person cheating over and you're just playing in the site and your B rotator left you by accident, you are fucked. Like you're never just gonna go and get a 4K. Like they're gonna Molotov, throw flashes in, they're gonna fucking swing in, and it's not gonna be some pod bot. It's gonna be like you're gonna have Zeus, so maybe you kill Zeus, and then guess who's behind him? Electronic, Simple, and like Flamey. Like one of them is headshotting you. You're not getting another kill. So that's why those sites are so hard to take. If you watched Liquid play Astralis the last time, they didn't even hold the site versus them. They just like played coffins and spawns and like went for pop shots and like kind of gave them the site a lot of the time and then retook it after, which they got a couple lucky shots through the smoke, sure, but like they didn't, like, you don't just play the site, you just get mollied out, flash, naded. It's just too hard. So playing those spots effectively is very, very hard, which is why he's valuable. Like, you don't have to be 20-8, So, and if you watch him play Banana, he'll go for those pop flash kills a lot, and he gets them, and he might go 1-for-1, but whatever, shit happens. But, controlling Banana is very hard versus good players. So I think Stewie's like, probably like, he probably has the biggest impact, but he's not like their best player, if that makes sense. Like, I think like the impact he can have when he's like on is like game winning, but you're not really going to see it from like the scoreboard, right? That's just kind of how I view Stewie. He can also op. Then you got Nitro. He's a caller. Now, this is another thing that I could probably make an entire another video on, of like these weird things where people are like, oh, well, he's a caller, but he wasn't a caller before, so he's not a real caller. Just like people don't classify Simple as an opper. If the motherfucker ops all the time, he's an opper. If the guy calls strats all the time, he's a fucking caller. I don't understand this. It's not like he's sitting there like default. Clearly he's calling good strats. Like they're doing map control, they're doing executes, they're having mid-round calls. Who do you think is doing that? Like, I don't understand it. It makes no sense how people can't give him credit. I think lately he's been getting more credit, but before people were like, oh, he's not a real caller, blah, blah, blah. He's not a real opera, he's not a real player. They should just cut him apparently. Like, I don't, I feel like it just blows my mind. Like, I'm just like, what? Like, okay, Simple is an insane rifler. Then he decides to op. He ops. He's better than everyone at opping. He gets way more op kills, but he's also really good at rifles. So people are like, oh, he's like a hybrid. He's like a hybrid. It's like, okay, like, so, like, he says he's an opper. Nitro says he's a caller. He's a fucking caller. Like, that's all there is. So, anyways, rant over. But so Nitro is like, obviously, he's a caller that can top frag. He gets a lot of important kills. He's got really good pistols. More like on pistol rounds. I think like Twistzz and NAF and stuff have like the better pistols on like the ecos they win. Not that he's bad, but I feel like Nitro's actual USP and Glock are really good. Kind of like me as a player is like, I feel like I'm better on like the pistol rounds than the second rounds, but like, yeah, I don't know, that's just me. Anyways, so I think some players are like that, but then he's also an opper, and it doesn't seem to like harm him in terms of calling, so that's really impressive because I think it's very hard. There's not a lot of players that can be like an effective in-game leader and an opper. However, lately I have seen like Stewie opping on T side, like Dust2, and then NAF opping on T side, Inferno and stuff like that. So I'm sure that helps the burden because like, to me, when I was a caller, I never like minded opping on CT. I always thought that was like pretty easy because on CT side, like, you're not really like calling strats. You don't really have to dictate what people are doing. Like, sure, you can say like, yo, I think they're gonna go B, like, let's clear mid or whatever, but like, that doesn't really affect your fragging that much. Whereas like on T side, there's times where like, you might be calling something and you're opping mid on Dust2, and then like, you're like talking, and then someone asks you a question, and they'll be like say you said, all right, this round I want a slow default, we're gonna take cat, and then we're gonna fall back and we're gonna throw an A fake to a mid B. All right, and then someone asks you a question, and they say they didn't hear you, or they asked something random. They're like, do you want to fake A first? And then you're like, yeah, I just said, and then you get peeked and you die because you're answering a question because you're talking and your full attention wasn't on the round, which is why I think T side, it's a lot easier to get caught off guard. There's a bunch of times where like people would ask me questions, and then sometimes your brain like turns on, like you hear their question, you're like, oh shit, like that's like maybe they were asking something you didn't really think about. They're like, oh, I don't have the smoke. So you're like, shit, okay, if he doesn't have the smoke, we're gonna have someone else. And then you might be like, Twistzz, don't smoke B this round, you're gonna use yours for here, and then you die. Like, that's all I'm saying, is like, there's like weird things that can happen that you can't really predict. Maybe they just, you know, sometimes it could be the player's fault. Maybe he misbought and then he didn't have the smoke, so he gets you killed. Anyways, T-side opping can be difficult when you're the caller. CT, much less than an excuse. I think the longer you play and the more like rhythm and everything you get, the easier it gets, just because like everyone doesn't ask you as many questions. There's not as much stuff going on. Everyone just kind of does their shit. Yeah, so Nitro and Stewie definitely for like that 4th, 5th spot, in my opinion. So all 5 players can top frag. Those are my opinions on the players, and this was like almost 20 minutes, so I'm not gonna, you know, do that thing where I talk for longer to make it 20, so peace. Fuck you all.